welcome. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Poonawala. For the last 4 days, we've been decoding a cold-blooded murder in the national capital. We've been piecing together the crime itself, the motive, the method and the madness of it all. Shraddha Walkar's murder, allegedly by her live-in partner, Aftab Poonawala, has reignited the debate over love jihad and forced conversions. It was her father who made the first allegation, asking for a probe in that direction as well. The BJP and the VHP then echoed that sentiment. They even took it a notch further. Today, a BJP MLA from Uttar Pradesh has shot off a letter to Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and to the Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju. Rajeshwar Singh, former Joint Director of the Enforcement Directorate and now an MLA from Lucknow, has called for a more stringent anti-conversion law. Remember, an anti-conversion law already exists in the state of Uttar Pradesh. He called for an amendment to the existing law and even called for a law to be considered at the national level. Now, he will be joining me in a few minutes from now, but this has triggered a larger debate. Forced conversions are of national security importance is what even the Supreme Court had observed just 2 days ago, albeit that was in another case. So has the time now come for such a law? Now, before we delve into that, let me take you through the contents of Rajeshwar Singh's letter and what is it that he really seeks. It is a 6-page letter that he put out on Twitter that we've accessed for you. And the biggest thing that he goes on to talk of is love jihad cases and why they need to be dealt with more seriousness. He says Shraddha's murder is reminiscent of love jihad crimes. He then goes on to say that radicalized members of certain communities are behind these hate crimes. We need to bring in legislative changes to control these hate crimes, he says. Rajeshwar Singh then goes on to say that a complete investigation and trial within 120 days is the need of the hour. He says 60 days for finishing the investigation and 60 days after that to complete the trial. That is how fast-track courts need to work in cases like these. He then goes on to ask or recommend a stricter punishment for love jihad cases because he says they cannot be treated as any other case or a normal criminal. Mandatory death penalty for murder and rape in cases of love jihad is what this MLA and a former Joint Director of the Enforcement Directorate now wants. And that really has triggered this bigger debate of whether or not this is the need of the hour.
Relationships, you said different things at the time.
So that's the debate and that's the big question that we're asking here on this edition of Plain Speak. A stringent anti-conversion law, the chorus is growing. Is it essential or is it an unwarranted provocation? And before I open this up to all my panelists, I have the BJP MLA from Lucknow, Rajeshwar Singh, who joins me live. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for joining us here on CNN News 18. Now, you have written to the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister. You've asked for an amendment to the existing law. You want it to be made more stringent. You've given some recommendations as well. Now, many would say that these changes, especially for the ones where you ask for no bail for an accused, can actually be misused, especially by the investigating agencies. How do you respond to that?
No, it wouldn't be misused because only when I am saying that the trial should be completed in 60 days and the investigation should also be completed in 60 days and there should be no amendments, there should be no adjournments given. So 120 days in jail is not a big thing. There should not be a provision of bail. And in case if there is an exigency, if court thinks, government thinks, then parole can be granted for a few days.
Right, now you send this letter not just to the Yogi Adityanath government, not just to your chief minister, but to the union law minister as well. Do you actually think it's viable to bring in this legislation on a national level? Because we've seen the kind of uproar or the opposition that came from opposition parties when anti-conversion bills were being brought out by respective states. Now imagine what happens when you try and do that via the parliament at a national level. Do you actually think that parliamentarians from opposition parties will give their nod for it?
Yes, government should seriously consider it. The type of gruesome offences which are being committed against women, against our daughters, against ladies is horrible. These things have to stop. There has to be deterrence. There has to be retribution. So such strong laws are needed. And actually what happens is that the cases are pending in India for long. There are more than 11 lakh heinous offence, violent crime cases pending for over 3 years. Pendency in trial court is more than 4 crores. Pendency in high courts is more than 49 lakhs.
Right.
So there is no justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. So my thing is there should be special courts and different effect should be there.
Right now, you speak of special courts and fast-track courts. You also speak of pendency, and we all know the kind of delay that we see in our judicial system. Do you actually think we have the bandwidth for what you're asking for at the level of lower courts, especially perhaps in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities?
Yes, we definitely have that bandwidth, and we should have such special courts in every state. We should have. Because if such crimes, if a criminal knows that he can get away, or he'll have so much time that the witnesses turn hostile, and in such cases there should be day-to-day trials. Supreme Court in its various judgments has also said that examination in chief and cross-examination should be held on the same day. So we should have separate dedicated courts. Such crime has just shaken the very consciousness of the society. Everybody is feeling unsafe. So a criminal should know that what would be his fate in 120 days, 60 days of investigation, 60 days of trial.
Right, so you're putting a deadline, so to say, of 120 days. But do you actually think that is going to be a deterrent? Because Uttar Pradesh, as we know, already has an anti-conversion law, but that really hasn't put an end to any of these cases, has it? Just 2 days ago, in fact, we had a woman named Nidhi Gupta who was thrown off the 4th floor of a building because she allegedly didn't accept a conversion nikah with her live-in partner. So what makes you think that the changes that you are proposing will actually end up making the law that would end up being a deterrent for such crimes?
Yes, definitely. See, there is no provision for special courts, and that to trial in next 60 days. If a criminal knows that he will be tried and found guilty, he would be hanged. I have requested that for rape and murder, for such a heinous crime like rape and murder, the mandatory penalty should be death penalty. If a person knows that in 60 days he would be tried and convicted and he will meet his fate, he is not going to commit that crime.
Right.
Otherwise, if he knows that his case would linger on, the witnesses would turn hostile, the family turns hostile, what happens? They get scot-free, and the time given, this is not done. This is not justified in.
Right, so there is some elbow room, and which is why you need to shorten that time frame is what you're asking for. And I want to ask you this question, Mr. Singh, because you've been a part of the investigating agency before you actually entered politics, and that's why I want to ask you about this particular investigation. Do you think there is actually enough evidence to convict Aftab Poonawala? Because at the moment there seems to be everything that's just circumstantial.
Yes, evidence. Police is doing a job. Police will definitely find more evidences. And as it is 161, as you have rightly said, is not an admissible evidence. The statement before police officer is not an admissible evidence. But definitely there are circumstantial evidences, and evidences being collected under 201, evidence being collected under different sections. I think police will do the needful.
Right. Before I let you go, Mr. Singh, just one last question, and I'm circling back to the anti-conversion law and the mention of love jihad that you make in your letter. There are at least 10 states, in fact, in this country that have such a law. But many are of the opinion that these laws are used to target religious minorities, even willing interfaith couples. How do you respond to that?
No, it is a religion neutral law. Even a foreigner coming though of any religion, it applies equally to all religions. Why would it be targeting a minority community? I don't subscribe to that view. You can't entice a woman that at the time of live-in relationships you said different things. At the time of marriage you tell her that you should convert, otherwise we are not going to marry. This is not going to. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable.
Right, Rajeshwar Singh, thank you so much for speaking with us here on Plain Speak on CNN News 18. And before I open this up to my panelists, I want to give a certain perspective to our viewers who are just joining in the broadcast. We're talking of an anti-conversion bill and the chorus for which is growing. But what really is the divide? What are the arguments in favor and what are the arguments against? And I want to put that up for our viewers so that you get a perspective of what really it is that is up for discussion tonight. The arguments in favor of the bill is that it will actually halt forced conversions that would come as reprieve to many people in this country. Arguments against is that this will be used specifically to target minorities, specifically Muslims, in a country like ours that many speak of has a majoritarian view at the moment. Now, arguments in favor of such a stringent law go on to say that converting others is not a fundamental right. Yes, you are constitutionally free to practice your own religion, but that does not give you the right to convert anyone else against their will. The argument against such a law is that it could be abused by fundamentalists. These arguments go back and forth. Another argument in favor of such a law is that it would prevent religious outfits from inciting people really, from trying to get them into their faith, trying to give them money, perhaps other perks. The arguments against is that it is extremely vague. It also goes against the liberty of the said individual. More arguments that are in favor of such a law is that it is crucial to stop these forced conversions. There are several arguments that have been made. There are several of these rackets that have been busted in the recent past as well. It is completely unnecessary and unconstitutional, says the other side. And that is really why we are seeing such a wide divide across the spectrum. And I want to open this up to my panelists who are joining us here on this broadcast. Supreme Court lawyer Namit Saxena is with me. Former Commissioner of Delhi Police T.R. Kakkad, Vinod Bansal, National Spokesperson of the VHP, and Tausif Ahmed Khan, an advocate, also joins me on this broadcast. Vinod Bansal, I'd like to get you started on this debate because it was the VHP really who began this entire chorus of love jihad and of an anti-conversion law and that entire angle to be probed in this particular murder case. Why do you think this has anything to do with love jihad? Why do you think there is a religious angle to it?
No, it's a clear case of religious angle. You see, doesn't exist, then why the Lucknow's Nadeem is killed Tima Soni, Allahabad Adnan killed Hina, Utah's Rizwan killed Antima, Delhi's Ashraf killed Khushi, Meerut Saqib killed Ekta, Khan of Delhi killed Nitu. This Samsad of Meerut killed Priya and Chanchal, both mother and this daughter. And you see, everybody knows about the Mujammil of Mumbai who killed Mansi. The Mohammad Sahil of Rohtak has killed Tanishq. Sher Khan of Ghaziabad killed Naina Kaur. The Ajaz of Sonabhadra has killed this Priya Soni. Arif Mohammad of Rohtak killed Shivani. This Imran of Noida killed Diksha. ये Shahjad of Bijnor killed Babli Rani, who was a Kho-Kho player. You see, the Baris of Mohali killed Barsha Chauhan. Lot many cases are there. I do have dozens of cases listed before me who have been killed merely because of the love jihad. They are all girls who have been trapped, kidnapped, then raped, then forcefully married, then converted to the Islam, and ultimately got killed. You see, and so many, you see, abhi recently, जो केरल में एक स्टोरी आई है, I mean, the picture रिलीज होने को है अभी, जिसका टीजर रिलीज हुआ है, द केरल स्टोरी, उसमें वो हीरोइन खुद कहती है कि 32,000 लड़कियों को कन्वर्ट करके सीरिया भेजा गया. आप देखिए, इस्लाम का इतना घिनौना चेहरा होने के बावजूद भी अब ये कहते हैं कभी नहीं, लव जिहाद एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता. नंबर 1. नंबर 2, आप एंटी कन्वर्जन लॉ की बात कर रहे थे ना, कि एंटी कन्वर्जन लॉ कितना जरूरी है इस देश के अंदर, इस बात का पता सिर्फ 10 महीने के कुछ आंकड़ों से लग जाता है. You see, in this 2020, the Uttar Pradesh government has enacted the new law to ban forceful religious conversion. I'm showing you the short data of 10 months, starting 10 months, beginning from January 21 to October 21. What this data says, 135 cases were lodged against under this law, and 410 this person was accused in this in various these cases, and 333 were the named accused. And out of them, you see, you will got very surprised that not only the law has been made, but the law, enforcement of the law is very important, which have been shown by the government of Uttar Pradesh, that out of 135 cases, 85 cases में आरोप पत्र दाखिल कर दिए. And out of that, you see, 82 जो है महिलाएं पीड़ित थी, जिनमें से 33% नाबालिग लड़कियां थी. This is the history of the first 10 months of the enactment of the law in the state of Uttar Pradesh only. आप देखिए, अगर ये लॉ अगर दिल्ली में होता तो शायद श्रद्धा को हम बचा पाते. दिल्ली सरकार को हमने 3 बार लेटर भेजा, VHP दिल्ली ने. अभी दिल्ली में भी एंटी लव जिहाद और एंटी कन्वर्जन लॉ होना चाहिए, क्योंकि दिल्ली के आसपास के सारे राज्यों में एंटी कन्वर्जन लॉ बन चुका है. तो इसलिए क्या है कि दिल्ली हैज बिकम द सेफ हेवन फॉर ऑल दोज इस्लामिक जिहादीज एंड जन्नत फॉर जिहादीज. वो आराम से वो इस तरह का एक्ट करते हैं, लड़कियों को फंसाते हैं, हिंदू लड़कियों को फंसा करके उसको रिलीजियस कन्वर्जन करते हैं, और उसके बाद मौत को मुंह में धकेल देते हैं, या वो मरने को मजबूर हो जाती है. देयर आर टू वेज, बिकॉज एक बार मुसलमान बन गई लड़की या मुसलमानों के चंगुलों में फंस गई, या तो वो खुद मर जाएगी या उसको मार दिया जाएगा. 2 ही तरीके हैं उसको.
जी।
और अननेसेसरी तो अगर जिंदी भी रहती है तो जिंदी भी मौत के मुंह में मौत की तरह जीती है, बेसिकली मरे हुए के समान जीती है। ऐसी दर्जनों नहीं हजारों केसेस मेरे पास हैं। और आप देखिए कि इसके बावजूद भी दिल्ली सरकार जो है सोई हुई है और इस्लामिक तुष्टीकरण, मुस्लिम तुष्टीकरण की अंधी जो आड़ में है, उसकी अंधी जो दौड़ में वो इतनी पागल हो चुकी है कि आखिरकार वो हिंदू समाज के हित की चिंता ही नहीं कर रही। लगातार हिंदुओं पर हमले हो रहे हैं। आप देखिए दिल्ली के अंदर, अकेले दिल्ली के अंदर पिछले 5 साल में
right, and you put forth some right, and you put forth some facts as far as Uttar Pradesh is concerned. And Tausif Ahmed Khan, we recently had a conviction in Uttar Pradesh as well under this particular law that was enacted 2 years ago. Now there are certain fears that are being raised. There are also certain facts that back those kind of fears. Then is it all right for politicians to say that this is only going to be used to malign a certain community, only going to be misused against a certain community? There may be truth to some of these allegations.
You see, fear is a very we should not be making laws in a country based on fear. If this gentleman who was speaking before me, he's sitting on a English news channel and he's speaking in Hindi. Now he expressed his fear. He talked about unverified data. He talked about hate-filled statements. I don't know how much of it can be backed by data and can be verified by data. You see, if some people has a fear that if he gets out of home, he will be killed, and therefore the government should pass a law that no one should get out of home. That's not how things work. There is one aspect to it, which is a legitimate aspect, which is that forced religious conversion is illegal. The law is already there. It is illegal for any person of any community to force anybody, to coerce anybody, to lure anybody into converting to another religion. It is illegal. The law is already there.
Right.
And on top of it, whatever you hear from the propagandist of the right wing is nothing but a political propaganda.
Right.
Today, if we take this case of Shraddha, it's a very brutal case of very ghastly crime deserving a capital punishment. No one will dispute to that.
Right.
But if you go back and you see whether there was a forced conversion, whether there was a marriage, whether anyone changed anybody's religion, none of it is here. Prima facie, it does not seem so. It should be open to police. Police must, probe all angles and provide evidence of what they have found.
Right.
But to come to TV and come to say that, Muslims are bad or Sikhs are bad or that, Christians are bad, this sort of thing is only going to ruin the secular fabric.
Right, and I don't think that's the intention of the people who are actually making these legislations. Yes, Vinod Bansal may have said something that you are picking on right now, and I will let him defend himself on it and make a rebuttal. But we've been speaking of laws that are being enacted at a state level, something that the Supreme Court has set a precedent for, and it has given the state legislatures power to actually enact these laws, which is why we're seeing at least 10 states in the country that have such a law already in existence. And Vinod Bansal, I need to go to my other two panelists as well, but I will give you 30 seconds to rebut to what Tausif Khan had to say.
I'll challenge Tausif Khan that whatever list I have enumerated over here, even a single case, if he can challenge me. आप देखिए ये डाटा सारा का सारा on record है. This what I've said on this national channel is on the basis of the media and the police reports. Number one. Number two is that whatever data I've shown on the channel about the impact of the law, it is all the government data. This is the VHP spokesperson. It's not a Jamaat Ulema Hind spokesperson or the Darul Uloom Deoband spokesperson or some jihadi element spokesperson. We believe in the reality. We believe in the facts, and we are the sufferers.
Also
this is the only country which is whose majority suffered by the ugly act of the minority community, so-called minority community.
The first terrorist of India,
even though we are not, we are very patient on it. आप देखिए कि मेरी बेटी के 35 टुकड़े करने वालों के बाद 35 टुकड़े करने के बाद भी हमने किसी सरतन से जुदा करने के नारा नहीं दिया. आपके लोगों ने क्या कहा? अभी तो कुछ किया नहीं, सिर्फ पैगंबर मोहम्मद के बारे में कुछ बोला, उसके बाद आपने सरतन से जुदा कर दिया. और आप लोगों को मुंह में से एक शब्द नहीं निकला. शर्म आनी चाहिए आप लोगों को, ऐसे लोगों को. और मेरी बेटी के 35 टुकड़े करवा दिए
दिन रात
और उस
गाली
जिहादी
देते हो,
और
दिन
35
रात
टुकड़े
बोलते
करने
कटवे
वालों को आप
काटे
फॉर्म
जाएंगे,
से
कैसे
निकालिए ना, आप उसको आप फतवा
झूठे
जारी करिए ना,
आदमी।
उसको बोलिए, उसको
कटवे
पेट्रोल डाल
काटे
के चलाइए,
जाएंगे,
उसको
मुल्ले
आप
काटे
बोलिए,
जाएंगे,
उसको
VSP
आप
वालों ने
उसको बोलिए,
निकाला प्रोसेसर।
अरे आप
कैसे
बोलिए
I
ना,
request you
उसको
both gentlemen to
पानी
please,
बोले चाहिए
please,
खड़ा करके।
I request you
कैसी
both
बात कर
gentlemen
रहे हो
to
आप?
please maintain civility of
आपको
the debate
शर्म आनी
and of
चाहिए।
course mind language as well. And I want to get in the other guests that have been patiently listening on. I want to get in the former Commissioner of Delhi Police who joins us on this broadcast. Mr. Kakkad, yes, there are these laws that are in place in several parts of the country. Some would say that they are being misused, especially by the police, because of the kind of provisions that these laws put in place. As someone who's been part of an investigating agencies, do you say that is a possibility? Do you think that could be the case? Or do you think that this kind of a law would actually bolster the police's investigation in some cases?
Unfortunately, every debate that we have on the television gets converted into a political debate. Today, it's a fact that forced conversions are taking place. The laws do exist in some states, but some states don't have it. Now, there is enough provision in these acts to only prosecute people who indulge in forced conversion. To say that the minority will be harassed, it is just the number. If the minority is indulging in forced conversion, obviously there will be more cases against the minority. And if the majority is not doing anything or doing in a limited fashion and it is a force, obviously the number will be less. So there is no need for hue and cry that the minority is being targeted by the law enforcement agencies. Whatever case comes before, whether the person is a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or anybody, it's just sheer numbers where the minority community boys are indulging in forced conversion or the people. So their number is more. I don't see any other reason. Now, whether this law should be enacted for the whole country or not, I think it should be, because one such case when takes place, it sort of creates social upheaval, resulting into mass violence here and there, sort of spending resources of the state. And if these are things to be stopped, there has to be very strict follow-up to these cases, and also very strict action must be initiated.
Right.
If somebody wants to convert otherwise, there is no objection. It is only the forced conversion where things go wrong.
Right.
Go wrong as per the law, go wrong socially, go wrong otherwise, creating an upheaval in the country.
Right, and Amit Saxena, I want to get you in on that because we are talking of cases that could become precedents in the future. We're also talking of laws that are cited, and as we know that the anti-conversion law that is in place in multiple states, there was a precedent that was set by Odisha decades ago, and that was upheld by the Supreme Court, that's saying that in case of public order issues, the state legislature can have the ability, does have the capability, or does have the mandate to put in place such a law. So then when we look at a national law and when chorus is being made for a national law, legally speaking, do you think that is viable, that is something that the courts would put their stamp on?
See, criminal law under the scheme, the constitution which we have, criminal law falls in concurrent list. So both state as well as the center can legislate on criminal law. Law and order is a state subject. So that is what the Supreme Court said in the Odisha case, as you mentioned, that law and order, because being a state subject, state can formulate a law on these lines, whatever. Now, when it comes to, whether the parliament of the country should make a uniform law across the country for, against forced conversions, I have reservations, regarding it. See, because when we make a law, there has to be a lot of data supplanting, the law as to what is the basic requirement of that law in a particular geographical region. Now, the states are better equipped to understand what is the requirement in that particular state as to whether there should be a law regarding forced conversion, or whether if we bring such a law, there will be a lot of misuse to that law. What should be the proportionate sentencing or proportionate punishment to that law against forced conversion? What will be the exact definition of forced conversion? So there are a lot of facets to it legally. So I think states are better equipped to bring on such laws. Like similarly, we have cow slaughter laws across different states, wherever the states have deemed it fit to bring such laws.
Right.
Similarly, the states deem it fit that that anti-conversion laws or forced conversions laws should be there in our state.
Right, but even at the state level, there have been several legal hurdles that have come to the fore. There have been several PILs that have been filed to challenge it, and the criticism always is that because we have a BJP government at the centre, something that a party or a government that some see as majoritarian, it is going to be used to target minorities, and that's the argument that is being made in cases of these particular states as well. What do you have to say about that?
See, criticism cannot deter state legislative assemblies to pass laws which they deem it fit to pass to suit the need to prescribe to law and order situation in the state. Criticism alone is not sufficient. See, there is a presumption of constitutionality in favor of a law passed by the state legislative assembly. So when constitutionality of such laws is being challenged, they have to show that what provision of the constitution, whether part 3 or otherwise, or any other law, if these laws violate the constitution, if they breach the constitution or not. In absence of that, there is a presumption in their favor. So criticism alone, see, anybody can stand up and criticize a law. It does not matter, simple. These are not legal arguments that minorities are being targeted, etc. Legal arguments are to be made to challenge constitutionality of a legislative assembly's provision of enactment. So criticism alone is not sufficient. There have to be legal arguments quite. See, and also, see, we have a democracy, we have a rule of law. If a law is passed by the state legislative assembly, only through judicial review it can be shrugged off. We don't have street justice, 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people, coming out on streets and saying and criticizing, oh, this is bad in law,
right.
This law should be taken back. It can't work like this.
Right. Why exactly is it bad in law is the argument that needs to be put forth, and I want to get in the other lawyer on the panel as well. Tausif Ahmed Khan, like Namit Saxena was pointing out, and I want you to get in on this, what exactly is the problem with these laws, legally speaking?
No, legally speaking, as the panelists before me already mentioned, that the law and order is a state subject, and state has passed laws. There are laws in every state. More or less, every state has the law. But to give it a name called love jihad, to define it, to call it a term, like introduce a new term called love jihad, and then define it in a way. I mean, as of now, it is very unambiguous. We do not have a draft in front of us. We are not discussing on any draft. But through
but we do have some sort of framework, given that it is present in at least 10 states in the country. So there is a skeleton, so to say.
What we have is a hate-filled propaganda which unnecessarily identifies a crime with a particular religion, which
but
is
why
not
do you say
permissible.
that? Which is why in my question I asked you, legally speaking, what is the trouble?
No, what is the need of calling this a love jihad? You can simply have. No, where does the term love jihad come from? What does it actually mean? How do you define it? Is the question. Why do we see every now and then on TV news channel these right-wingers, the BJP or the VHP or other Sangh Parivars, a spokesperson talking about love jihad and talking about religion? The crime is a crime. If you try to identify it with a religion, then you are trying to reap a political benefit out of something, because it has always been seen that if in the voting period, if votes are polarized, it helps BJP. So we cannot today be so innocent and say, oh no, I am talking about reform, I'm talking about law. No, you are actually propagating your propaganda. You are furthering your cause of election campaign. You are polarizing votes to help win the election.
So then it's all about political narrative.
All in the name of innocently, yes, it's a political narrative.
But some would say that's the case the other side of the spectrum as well. All those who claim that this is persecution of minorities under a BJP government, some would say even that's just political narrative and absolutely has no truth to it.
No, you can choose to say that Pehlu Khan was not lynched. You can say there are hundreds of names. I do not know. I do not come with the list of the names. But you can today deny on the television channel that in the past, since the BJP came to power, not a single person identified by the religion has been lynched by mob. You can say that, but that does not change the fact. People have seen it. It is only setting a political narrative to help people in power win the election. You can say that. No lynching going on. You can say on mere suspicion of meat being a beef meat. The person was
representative is here in the debate.
And the convicts,
any political party there in the debate.
Convicts was in jail.
If you have the data, you show me. Otherwise, tell me who killed Krishna Valmiki of Jalabad, who killed Khemchand Mahavar of Jaipur, who killed Yogesh Jatav of Alwar, who killed Sampath Bairwa of Alwar, who killed Pooja Mehra of Jalabad, who killed Gaurav Prakash Bhatta of Baswara, who killed Sarika of Pali, who killed Adat Tapadia of Bhilwara.
Right, gentlemen, so the jury is still out on this. The debate has been reignited and we will continue to have these kind of debates, because whether or not this law is or a need for this law is actually the need of the hour, is it warranted or is it a needless provocation? That has been the debate every time we've had a state wanting to bring in such a law. Those laws have been passed, there have been convictions that have been made under those laws as well, cases that have been reported, and some courts have found merit in the allegations or the charges made on the basis of that particular law, which is why we've seen convictions as well. But that debate continues. Now that a chorus is being made for a national law, whether the time has come for that or is it just a needless provocation, like I said? Well, the debate is out there and our viewers can judge for themselves what it is. But I thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us here on this broadcast with your perspective.